Good evening, fellow Canadians. My name is Donnie Grexton from the Canadian Loyalist. This evening, I'd like to thank you all for joining me as I have a very important message or a base political platform that I've been working on for a very long time regarding full and final reconciliation and financial restitution to all status card holding Indigenous Native Indian Canadians. Now, before I go any further, I would like to apologize to anyone that may be offended by some of the terminologies that I use and some of the way that I use certain words. It is not my intention to offend absolutely anyone. It is my intention to fully put a good foot forward into bringing a discussion to the table between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians to work towards a path of true unity and equality for absolutely all of us. So that being said, I'm just going to jump right into it. This isn't perfect by any means. I'll start off with reconciliation. To fully investigate and finalize all investigations pertaining to the properties related to any and all residential schools and crimes committed at these schools, and to fully finish these investigations so we can bring closure to the families that rightly are owed. Then these families can truly start the path of healing within themselves and their families. Finalize the financial restitution related to the residential schools and for any or all of the crimes that were committed at these educational, if you want to call them educational facilities. See, one of the biggest things is to fully remove and dispose of the racist Indian Act of Canada. The fact that we have an Indian Act in Canada is something that every Canadian should be ashamed of. Now, we would also like to see the adding of Indigenous, Native Indian Canadian languages to all public school curriculums across Canada. And one of the best ways we can do that is through educating the non-Indigenous community on our Indigenous peoples, or on the Indigenous peoples of Canada, Now, another thing that we would like to see is also on signage, all public signage across Canada. Not only just to have English and French, and in many areas across Canada, we have both those languages as official languages on our public buildings, libraries, government buildings, many schools. So how is it going to be that hard for us to add a third language, the local Indigenous language for each region or district or territory are active and can be implemented into those local curriculums with the help of the Indigenous community that can step up to the table and help us teach this knowledge through our curriculum. Now, one of the biggest things is that all fishing, hunting, and gathering rights will be reevaluated and made 100% equal for all people in Canada, including isolated communities. Natural resources, the M&Rs, between each province and territory, will determine the possession limits for each area regarding fish and animal. This is also to ensure the safety and the population growth of the fish and animal species within all regions of Canada. Now, if you're in a remote area of Canada, I will say right off the bat that the limit amounts will reflect what you need for survival purposes. We are also going to advise that we invest into 250 brand new fish hatcheries across Canada, and especially in our remote areas of Canada. The majority, if not all, will be built in these remote areas of Canada. Now, this will also drastically increase the number of fish populations in many and majority of our bodies of water, while creating great paying jobs in these remote areas as well. $1 million will be allocated per hatchery for construction and initial costs to get up and running. So there is 3,394 reserves in Canada. They will all receive $20 million each for infrastructure and for transitioning into official Canadian municipalities. No longer will the reserves be known as reserves or modern-day POW camps. For the total infrastructure and transitioning costs, we are looking at just shy of $68 billion. There is approximately 1.7 million status-holding Indigenous Indian Canadians in Canada. Financial restitution for all wrongdoings of the past and stolen lands and broken treaties and agreed-upon treaties. Like I said, this is for full and final reconciliation and financial restitution to bring us to the table, as 100% equal people of this land. So as I said, $1 million will be allocated for each status holding Indigenous Indian Canadian up until the end of the last day before the first day of the distribution of funds. So for example, a child born on December 31st, 2025 would qualify for the restitution funds program that would start possibly on January 1st, 2026. The restitution funds will also be paid out over a 10-year span, which works out to $100,000 per person per year. Any peoples under the age of 18 will have their funds placed into a trust that they can then access after their 18th birthday. This program implemented, there is a very good chance that the population of the Canadian Indigenous Indians of Canada will be closer to the population of 2 million people. So based off of the 1 million per person, off of 2 million Indigenous Indian Canadians, that would work out to $2 trillion. Yes, you heard me. $2 trillion. All laws of the land, social programs, taxation, etc., will be equal for all Canadians upon agreement. All structures and current housing and community asset will remain in the ownership of each reserve, or as I said, new municipality community, and under the directive of the elected chief and council. Additional land within these municipality districts may also be sold under the direction of the elected chief and council to the general public or corporation for municipal growth and for taxation profits to help maintain each one of these communities. Now, this will also include the full payout of what used to be known as the Canadian Indian Trust Fund, or some know it as the Crown Treaty Trust Funds, or currently known as the Indigenous Community Support Fund, the ICSF. Once we agree and finalize to the full and final reconciliation and financial restitution agreement, we will build national flame monuments across Canada, representing the unification of the Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians that are working towards an equal path as one people of Canada. These monuments, upon approval and acceptance of the Indigenous Indian community within Canada, will be lit in ceremony by the elders and respected peoples in those Indigenous communities. Again, my name is Donnie Grexton with the Canadian Loyalist. My intention was not to hurt anyone or to be offensive whatsoever. This ideology that I speak about today is based off of love, unity, peace, and equality, absolute equality for all Canadians. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.